So this is a video talking about why so many men are quietly dropping out of society and no one is talking about it.
Most people have noticed it, but almost nobody is talking about it. Actually, I'm seeing quite a few videos where people are talking about it, but in the grand scheme of things, the percentage is kind of low. And men aren't going out anymore. They're not showing up in social spaces the way that we used to. They're not at parties, not at bars, not at gatherings, not even in friend groups like before. It's like there's this quiet disappearance happening in real time. And everybody can feel it, yet a lot of people just pretend it's not there. So instead of asking what's really going on, a lot of people assume men are just lazy or antisocial or glued to the screens. And I'm sure in a select section of people, it's all of those things in different segments. But what's happening is actually a little bit deeper than this. It's not about weakness. It's not about apathy. It's definitely not about men suddenly not liking socializing. This is something else entirely. And the truth behind it explains way more about our culture than people want to admit. What's happening today is a buildup of changes, cultural, economic, psychological, and social. They've pushed a huge percentage of men into a place where they no longer feel like being out there is even worth it. They don't feel like they belong in many of the spaces they once did. They don't feel welcome. They don't feel valued. And they don't feel like the world wants them around unless you can offer something absolutely extraordinary. And more guys feel like they're only tolerated and not appreciated, and only if they bring something to the table that impresses people. When
Yep,
you feel that way
pretty
for
much.
long enough, you just stop showing up. So one of the biggest reasons men aren't going out is because a lot of them simply don't feel wanted anymore. Not by society, not in dating, and sometimes not even in their friend group. It's hard to feel excited about socializing when you constantly feel like you're walking into rooms where nobody is even glad that you're there. And many men feel like they have to earn every bit of acceptance they get. Like they have to perform and bring value just to avoid being seen as a burden.
Yeah, so this is like a big part of it is men have historically been, we've been told we need to be the providers. We have to, financially provide if we want to get into a relationship with a girl or get married. We're told, we have to be like the breadwinners, like we have to do all the work. And there's just almost like this like expectation, oh, this because you're a man, this is what you have to do. And it's no different in the dating realm. And a lot of these women, they're just really kind of just like give me, I deserve, I owe, you owe me. Like they want you to take them on like fancy dates and spend a bunch of money on dates. And men are just, a lot of young men especially are just getting to the point of like, well, okay, well, what's the point of all this? What's the point? We don't feel heard, we don't feel seen. um yeah, it's a real issue.
There's no unconditional support system for most men. They don't have a built-in community. There's no real safety net of people who can check on them or pulling them into things. They don't initiate something. Pretty much nothing happens. If they don't reach out, their phone stays silent. And after a while, staying home simply feels easier than constantly trying to prove you belong somewhere.
Yep.
Another huge piece of the puzzle is the financial cost and the emotional cost of going out. Years ago,
Yep.
a night out could be fun and cheap. Now it's really kind of luxury. Drinks, transportation, food, covered somebody's part,
Everything because of
and all of it adds up. A
inflation.
simple night out can cost somebody $100 to $200 easily, and the reward for that investment often nothing. Many guys walk into social spaces and feel ignored or overlooked, especially environments built around dating or appearance. If a guy is paying $150 just to feel invisible or judged, it doesn't take long before he starts asking himself,
Well,
what the fuck am I doing this for?
what's the point?
When the effort and money outweigh the
What's
benefits.
what's the point of spending all this money on some broad who's likely just going to end up leaving you for the next better thing anyways? It's all about American culture. It's all about, getting the next best thing and being with people who have like, all the, whether they're like rich or like upper class or like have a lot of material stuff. Like relationships have become very like materialistic, as opposed to, just like a mutual support. You help each other out and work together. That's what a marriage is. It's just like a, oh, men, you're supposed to provide, you're like the ATM machine, and I'll be with you, and as long as you provide me money to do what I want to do. And if for whatever reason you run out of the money or lose your job, oh, okay, well then I'm leaving you. You're no longer useful to me. That's what men have been dealing with for like a long time now. But it's gotten worse in the more recent years with the hyperinflation, and all the, you know, how everything is so much more expensive now than it used to be.
Staying home feels smarter, not sadder. On top of that, social environments turn into competitive arenas. Everything's about status now. Who's more attractive,
Yep.
has more money, who socially charismatic, who's
Who's
funny.
like 6'4", who has like multiple businesses, like, you know, just all this superficial stuff. You know, people only look at materialistic stuff and, you know, somebody's social status or economic status, as opposed to like, okay, well, how are they actually as a person? You know, there's a lot of people who are really wealthy, but they're really not that good of a human being. And, you know, meanwhile, there might be somebody who, you know, is, you know, more poor, but they have, you know, like a really good heart. They care about others. You know, this stuff gets overlooked all the time today.
Funnier, dress better. The pressure is constant. Instead of going out to relax or connect, a lot of men feel like they're going out to be evaluated. They feel like they're being silent compared to every other guy in the room, and in
Yep.
many spaces, especially in the nightlife, there's an unspoken rule that men are the ones who need to prove themselves in order to be accepted. It doesn't feel like community anymore, it feels like performance, and that pushes a lot of people away.
Just all the
A lot of guys
performance.
away. Dating culture is another massive factor. With dating apps, the majority of men experience very little success. Many report getting almost no matches, no messages, no real chances to connect. Meanwhile, social media constantly shows a more world where every guy is supposedly living his best life surrounded by attention and options. This creates a gap between expectation and reality that affects men deeply. Approaching someone in person feels risky, not just emotionally, but socially. A lot of men fear being recorded, mocked, shared online, or accused of things, even if they are respectful. The fear of embarrassment has never been higher. Why risk humiliation when staying home feels safer? When guys feel like they're rejected before they even start, they're going to stop trying. Another smaller, overlooked reason is that many men simply don't have strong friendships anymore. The days of tight knit groups hanging out every weekend are disappearing. Loneliness among men is at an all time high, and going out alone rarely feels good. Most men don't have a group chat of friends hitting them up to hang out. For many, they don't initiate, nothing happens. And initiating takes energy, especially when you're dealing with stress, insecurity, or exhaustion.
Yeah, I'll speak to that, my own personal experience. I have like, I really only truly have like one guy friend, you know, and that's like my best friend Devin. You know, he actually does reach out to me. I'll reach out to him. Like, we genuinely try to hang, you know, we can't always hang out because now he's married, and he, you know, it does make it harder. He lives in Canton, but, you know, he still reaches out. He still texts me. He still calls me. Um, every once in a while I might get a few people from church keep in contact with me, but like, yeah, most people, you know, it's like I would have to text them or call them and for anything, you know, and it's like, you know, you just kind of get tired of that eventually. You just kind of just, why do I always have to be the one that initiates things? And yeah.
Humans are social creatures, but men often lack the social infrastructure that makes socializing easy. When you don't have people to go out with, you're not going out at all. It's not complicated math. A lot of men today are simply exhausted. Between work, financial pressures, personal responsibilities, and trying to figure out their future, many guys feel drained before the weekend even starts. So going out doesn't feel like a break, it feels like another task. For some men, socializing takes on a lot of emotional energy, especially when they feel like they have to pretend everything's fine. Going
Yep.
out used to be fun. Now it can feel like performing.
Which is
Smiling through the
something that I
stress.
can never do because I'm just a real authentic person, and, you know, how I'm doing, it's gonna show on my face whether I say it or not. You know, I'm not one of these people who can just always just fake and perform, you know, which makes it harder for me particularly. But yeah, this is what meant we're expected to just put on a show, perform, do all these things.
Pretending to have it all together. And when your mind is heavy, the loud, chaotic world outside doesn't feel appealing. Peace becomes more valuable than excitement. Then there's also the issue of safety and risk. A night out can be predictable. Fights, misunderstandings, confrontation, the constant presence of cameras, fucking suck, make many men feel like any mistake can be recorded and live forever now. One wrong moment, one argument, one misunderstanding, and things can escalate. There's financial risk, reputational risk, and obviously the physical risk. And a lot of guys think, for what? What What do I gain from going out that's worth the risk? When the world feels unstable,
Kind of
men
like the
retreat.
same thing that I was talking about, like, you know, most jobs, like trying to get most, like, what's the point, you know, is there any kind of payout? And, you know, then, you know, we get told, oh, you're entitled. And it's like, well, it's hard for somebody to feel motivated to do something if they don't feel like they're going to get any kind of gain from it, you know?
To the one place they control. That's their room, their house, their own environment. But deeper than this is something that's more internal, purpose. Men thrive when they feel like they are building something, improving, or moving forward. When a man feels like he has direction, he becomes naturally more social. But when he's uncertain about who he is, or unhappy with the progress he's making, he doesn't want to be seen. He doesn't want to go out and
Yep.
pretend. Men hide when they feel lost, not because they don't care, but because they don't want to be judged while they're still figuring things out.
Exactly.
Modern society puts enormous pressure on men to
Yeah.
succeed
Yeah,
quickly.
people, like, you know, what he said just hit me spot on, because I've kind of been in a situation where I've been really kind of struggling. I've been unemployed for over a year, and you know, that's, you know, I have been trying to get a job, but the job market is just so horrible right now. And, you know, I've been going through a lot of stuff, and it's like, you know, when you have these social gatherings or even extended family gatherings, they're incredibly draining, and they can just feel so isolating and lonely for me, because I don't really have, you know, most people always want to ask you how you're doing in your life. They want to ask about your work. They want to ask about all these superficial things. And it just gets, you know, it's like, I'm to the point where I just don't want to deal with that. You know, I have my close people that I trust, and I'll tell them, you know, what I'm going through. But, you know, most people, they're just going to judge you, or, you know, it's like all these societal expectations. There's a lot of pressure, especially if you're a man.
To have money, confidence, muscles, charisma, style, all that shit. And when they fall short of those expectations, they pull back from the world. Many men also feel like they're not needed, not in relationships where independence is encouraged, not at work where everyone is replaceable, not in society where men are often portrayed as the problem rather than part of the solution. So when you feel unneeded, you withdraw, not out of anger, but out of a deep sense of not belonging. Men want to contribute, but when they're told they're not valued or that their presence doesn't matter, they slowly fade from spaces where they feel unwanted. And yes, the digital world plays a major role in that. Online life is easier, predictable, it's customizable, and you can play games, watch videos, escape into hobbies, manage your own fucking world. You don't have to worry about rejection or judgment or being compared to something. It's not that men love the digital world more. It's just that the digital world kind of hurts less. It demands less. It
It
criticizes
kind
you.
of like makes us feel safer. It's like, you know, you get lost in like video. Like, I know for me, you know, and like a lot of men, you know, we kind of get lost in like video games, because, you know, in video games, at least if, you know, we're struggling in our, you know, personal life, or we're struggling financially or whatever, if we have like our video game systems, you know, we can just play, and we can like make these advancements and do, it's like an artificial like sense of accomplishment. And I know I've, you know, dealt with that, you know, because, you know, it's just, I just feel safer sometimes just being at my house, you know, playing video games.
Less. And when real life feels like a constant evaluation, the online world becomes a sanctuary. So the truth behind all this, men aren't dropping out because they want to disappear. They're dropping out because the world they're in doesn't feel like it has a place for them. It's not that they don't want connection. It's that they don't see where they fit. Men want community. They want purpose. They want respect. They want belonging. They want to feel like they matter somewhere. And when they don't find that in the outside world, they retreat to the only spaces where they feel safe from criticism, from pressure, from rejection, from judgment. And the saddest part is that most of these people don't talk about it. Most of these men don't talk about it. They don't want to sound weak or emotional or needy. So instead of expressing what they feel, they simply disappear a little more each year. Not dramatically, not loudly, just quietly. A little less present, a little less social, and a little less visible. But the story doesn't have to end there. Men don't stay withdrawn forever. Once they find a place where they feel welcome, appreciated, and understood, they show up again. They come alive again. When men can find purpose, they can find connection. When they find real friendships and real support, everything kind of changes. They just need spaces that don't demand perfection, performance, or status in exchange for belonging. Right now, though, we're watching a whole generation of men step back from a world that doesn't feel designed for them anymore. And until society creates real conditions.
Yeah, so basically that's like the end of the video. But and another thing, he kind of touched up on it a little bit, but like men, you know, have historically not felt as safe to express, you know, their struggles, or what if they deal with mental health. Like myself, I deal with mental health. I have a lot of anxiety. I have social anxiety. I have depression, um, and our society often, for men, when you express to people, you know, you're struggling with things or you're having a hard time, you know, you're kind of dismissed or mocked or made fun of, or or you're told like, oh well, you're a man, just figure it out, man up, or whatever. Your problems aren't taken seriously like women, and that leads to a lot of men feeling isolated and alone, and also why he, like he said, you know, they withdraw from society and withdraw from like social gatherings and hangouts because they don't feel like they're cared about. And this unfortunately, you know, leads to a lot of men, you know, offing themselves. You know, there's statistically much more men that are unaliving themselves when compared to women because of this issue. You know, we don't have, you know, I don't feel like we have adequate help or resources for men, or we don't make men feel safe to express their vulnerabilities, express, you know, their struggles or their concerns. And, you know, but we go out of our way to always make a woman feel good when she's having her issues. And, you know, I think both men and women should be heard and should be seen and should be listened to and taken seriously, you know, when they're going through things. But anyways, I'm going to end it here. I'll read the some of the comments in the next part.